Hey everyone, for those that don't know me, I'm Warren. I'm the one who's been incessantly emailing you over the last few weeks. Welcome to our nutrient cycling forum with RIEEE steps. We're really excited to have all of you here to think about what phosphorus questions we need to answer in the high country and how we can address those as researchers and community members. So I'm excited to have all of you here. There are copies of the agenda on the tables that you can have for reference. There's also a survey paperclip to it. Don't worry about that now. Just if you have thoughts during the seminar about how we can improve or things that you think of, feel free to fill that out as we go. I will also send it out as a Google form later, in case you don't have time. So don't feel like you have to fill it out. It's just there if you have thoughts and need to get them out. So first, we're going to start with the RIEEE webinar, which will be led by Grace Plummer. And I'm going to give the floor briefly to Christine to talk about RIEEE.
Hi, everybody. So I am Christine Hendren. I'm the interim vice provost for research and innovation here at Appalachian State. And this is really exciting because I got to be a part of the sort of inception of this event from the project side. And now I get to be involved with saying how perfectly this is aligned with the strategic goals of the university's research mission, which is, in part to make a big difference in our communities and to create global scholars who are able to address problems. That's what we are doing with this. It's been very, very fun to be part of putting together and watching everyone create a project team and partnerships beyond that project team that really do make a difference, not only in phosphorus sustainability, which is our mission of the STEP Center, as you'll hear, but also in kind of educating ourselves through a demonstration of how you do span all these boundaries to solve complex problems together and synthesize knowledge from a whole variety of vantage points. So a really big thanks to Kim Bourne, who, sometimes you get really lucky and then you wish for somebody who can do all of these things, and then a person falls out of the sky who can, or your past, who can do all of those things and more. And Kim has built this into just such an awesome event and awesome project, along with the entire team. So I hope you enjoy today, and everybody who's involved in any capacity, whether just this webinar or the broader nutrient cycling forum that is going to happen, please feel fully invited to share your creativity, criticisms, ideas. That's the idea of this. We want to blend them all together to do great things. So thank you, Kim. And now I'm going to pass it off to the Associate Director of the Research Institute for Environment, Energy, and Economics, Grace Plummer. The RIEEE, as we call it, so that we don't say that whole sentence every time, is the we consider that the research arm of the sustainability mission of the university. And so there's a lot of creative fun things that happen there, and this is one of them. So welcome, Grace, to talk about what is going on with the project and RIEEE. Oh, yeah, that is not my skill set.
Hi, thank you all. And thanks for joining online too. This is a kind of a difficult tech situation for online participation, but I appreciate the online participants hanging with us. So I will move us forward a couple of slides, maybe. Okay, so RIEEE hosts webinars about 3 per semester. We've been using these to kind of convene conversations around particular topic areas. And we're using the webinar today and stumbling through a hybrid format, basically, but to use the webinar to kick off the forum that will happen today, for those of you that are interested. So I'm going to quickly just kind of go over just to set the context for this forum. It's part of a large NSF center. There are some things going on here at Appalachian that I'll share a little bit about before we hear from task leaders and faculty that are involved in that. So I want to move through these quickly. We've got a late start and have a lot to do this afternoon. But STEPS is basically the National Science Foundation has a Science and Technology Centers program, which is one of its most competitive and largest funding opportunities. This slide is actually dated a little bit because there are now 9, soon to be 10 universities involved. The effort is led out of NC State. Clemson is the one that's not on here. And we're about to add the University of Arkansas because of the faculty movement there. So this is a $25 million over 5 years, tackling the problem of phosphorus sustainability. This, I'll let you just kind of the phosphorus problem, and most people have heard this so far or know it from other contexts, but I know we have a class too. And so the phosphorus problem, basically, we are working across scales to try to come up with technologies and solutions to address this problem. The vision for STEPS is a 25 and 25 reduction. So in 25 years, reduce reliance on mine phosphorus, but also reduce runoff and phosphorus waste in the cycles. This is a boundary object we're using. So this is the National Science Foundation has this, one of their 10 big ideas a few years ago was to replace convergence. And that's basically trying to work across boundaries, across sectors, stakeholder communities to affect change and productive applied research. Boundary objects are one way to do that in team science and knowledge producing communities. So looking at something that everyone has shared meaning around, how the different perspectives and disciplines can plug into it, basically where they are change or different. So this is the foundational EFO diagram that the center used at COSA time. There are new iterations of this. They're adding complexity, but this is the global phosphorus flows, and you can see the size of the arrows basically shows how much is moving in among what systems. The stars here for roughly kind of represent our effort here at NAP, where we're trying to do something, but there are some that are not represented because this is an imperfect flow diagram. There are things here about governance and agency and actors and decision making, things of that sort that are not reflected here at all. But just to use this kind of as the foundation for what we're trying to do here at NAP. So we get some of the funding from NC State, and we are using that here to fund tasks that start to build up kind of mosaic style, a picture of heat flows in the high. So we would love to come at the end of the 5-year period, maybe 10 if it's extended. We would love to come to a place where we have a place-based version of this that shows some of these other governance and policy and other things that are not reflected here. That reflects the high country. So all of the tasks are kind of working toward that, the tasks that we're funding here in that state. The other thing I'll just share quickly is that the center has 3 embedded triple bottom line scenario sites. And we're also kind of using this as a model or the framework basically for what we're working toward here. So we're going to basically gather data and study dynamics basically to look at the high country as a triple bottom line scenario site that doesn't yet exist in steps. And we're a mountainous environment. We have integrated agriculture systems, headwaters regions. There are lots of things that are unique to the state context. So that is what we're working toward. And then just for timing and cycling, we're also trying to get innovative with how the university, how a primarily undergraduate university connects with large and distributed research entities like this that are usually research intensive, R1, large universities. Most of the others in steps are. There's one other UI. But we've kind of come up with a cycle that we are refining and hopefully improving, learning each year as we go, to kind of get us through this. How do we bring new tasks in? How do we integrate students into that? And then how do we help what we learned in that last year inform what we might do in the next year toward this goal of the high country TBL, the high country PFOA value. So we are roughly in this space kind of in between, we're in the fall term. So we're looking at the forum today. Obviously, this is part of our knowledge integration and kind of refining what we might need, what pieces of the mosaic we need for the next cycle. And we also have the faculty that were supported in year 2, team teaching a liquid phosphorus RAM course. And I'll just leave it at that because we're about to hear from that among some other tasks. Okay, so we have these tasks are funded right now. There are a few here that just started a little bit off cycle that are not reflected. So for the next, I guess it'll be about a half hour, we have kind of flash talks from each of the task leads for those and the couple that are the board talks. So then we'll jump back to Kim, who will present on a few things today. And yeah, thanks for coming. So one of the things we want to highlight is a project course that we have here at App State. So Jay Rickabaugh and I have been instructors of record this semester. Last year, it was also run last fall, which I can take no credit for, though, because all of Jay and the rest of the researchers who contributed to that course. But basically, it is an independent research course for undergrads where we break into teams to do different phosphorus sustainability related projects and promote convergence. So it's really about how do we achieve convergence research in this framework with phosphorus as an example of, this broader, how do we address wicked problems in a convergence framework, and giving students the skills and resources with which to address those problems in the future. So really building those research skills and frameworks.
Yeah, and we'll just go in the order of the slides. Oh, and Bob isn't here, so I won't be able to speak eloquently to all of you, but we wanted to be sure that all the tasks that were that are supported are represented. So Bob is in chemistry and fermentation sciences, and he's working also with Shay and Mike, others you'll hear from. There's collaboration across the tasks, but he's looking at 2 loss pathways, basically, of phosphorus going out of the high country. That's in evergreen tree exports and in surface waters. You can kind of skim through his methodology there. Right now he's looking at the New River and some participating growers at this point. But there's an opportunity to expand this to other subbasins and geographies. Jay.
I'm a professor in government and justice studies at Appalachian State, and one of the projects that we've been working on with some undergraduate students, and we'll have some communication faculty members that will turn in joining us, and then a postdoc at NC State, Ashton Merck, that will also be engaged in this project with us. We did a pilot test over the last year where we've been evaluating the ways there have been collaborations across agencies in state government, in particular looking at something called the Interagency Nutrient Management Committee, and a committee formed by Senate Bill 1217 in the 1990s, managing animal waste projects and making sure that there is not undue surface water pollution from hog lagoons and other livestock and poultry influences. We're going to try and expand and replicate that across other different ways and locations that there might be cooperation, either within state government or thinking about the ways state government might be working with watershed and basin associations, thinking about the ways that local government, soil and water conservation districts, cooperative extension offices, all of the different ways that there might be public sector influence beyond just sort of command and control regulation, thinking about the ways there might be incentives, or there might be sort of like encouragement or sharing of best practices from NC State, A&T, Appalachian, across the state of North Carolina to get a picture for how this collaboration happens. Because one of the things we know about better forms of governance is that if you only try and tackle a problem from one angle, if you only have the Department of Agriculture thinking about a problem, you're going to get a very specific, limited set of solutions that, and the same would be true for water quality and the division of environmental quality, that once you start bringing all of those multiple stakeholders and those multiple perspectives together, you're able to create a more robust policy or a better system of incentives to ensure that all of these different stakeholders are getting represented and thinking more holistically about a problem rather than sort of saying, this is an agriculture problem, let the ag folks deal with it, or this is a water quality problem, let the water quality folks deal with it. So the goal is actually from the flow diagram that Grace was showing earlier is to identify the places where there is collaboration in that flow diagram across the public sector. Thinking about universities, local governments, special districts like soil and water conservation districts, university functions, state agencies, USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, thinking really broadly about the ways that governmental collaboration affecting phosphorus flows throughout the state of North Carolina, but also here in Iowa.
Okay. And as you'll notice, what Dave was talking about is not represented in the boundary object flow diagram, just the sort of thing that we want to improve.
Thank you. My name is Ann Fanatico, and the task that I'd like to talk about is sustainable food systems in the high country, of course, nutrient cycling, and community building on small farms. I teach in sustainable development, and my field is ecological poultry production. I've been involved with the steps year 1 and year 2, and the primary trying to look at is research-based questions about how do we develop research capacity for phosphorus nutrient cycling in local agriculture, and particularly mutualistic interactions on the farm. I've had the pleasure of working with one of my colleagues, Dr. Oakwood, who will speak to us later, and I've realized, this type of interdisciplinary work that, well, he works with microbes, that's also biota. I work with chickens, and here microbes and chickens really help a lot with nutrient cycling. I mean, they really enhance nutrient cycling. So I think it's, interesting to see the research focus and then education, how we can create community engaged, experiential, convergent learning environment for students, future farmers, and other stakeholders. So the way we've been doing this, Southern Appalachia really is a stronghold for small farms, largely due to our mountainous terrain, but also interesting when you start talking to people, with Southern Appalachian heritage, resourcefulness. This is something that the community around here is known for. And that does kind of mean not using external inputs, and it's kind of a, circular ingredients, recycling type focus. So we have, started developing our research capacity. We do have a farm, Sustainable Development, and University has a farm, the Sustainable Development Teaching Research Farm, which I believe is just a great resource for shared research infrastructure. I mean, the things that are possible, like data sets on crop production from a small diversified farm, has a lot of potential, and trees, I mean, it's mainly wooded. There's very little research in North Carolina on small farms. You know, there's 18 NCBA experimental stations around the state, and really only the Center for Environmental Farming Systems in Goldsboro is the one that's mainly known for small farms research. And we do have Upper Mountain here, but you know, we need to see more research on small farms, how to increase this. So in year one, we developed capacity for our pasture poultry feeding trials. We set up a feed lab, we revamped our brooder, and this is when Dr. Oglu started volunteering his time generously in year one with this project. We set up our field pens for a feeding trial, and STEPS, our IEEE, contributed $10,000 actually to site preparation and grading for our own farm humane poultry slaughter, and actually capture of slaughter waste and capture of agricultural water. So we're also developing ecological feeds for poultry, germinated buckwheat. Buckwheat can actually provide the phytase that's needed to break down phytate phosphorus for chickens. Bone meal from a local butchery. The bones are just going to the landfill. So we really wanted to work with their knuckle bones from Watauga Butchery. I was pleased that Purdue Foods was interested enough in this type of feeding to invite me last year to give a talk at the 7th Annual Animal Care Summit. So that was exciting for me that people really are interested in this, even industry. And then in the Civic Garden right on campus, we're really trying to develop biointensive urban capacity, compost research. Our compost research facility is actually based on Kevin Gamble's type of design. The students are copying it. So, you know, it's kind of neat to see that reach. Also, solar hydroponics. We're trying to power our hydroponic system with solar. We have a big solar panel there. And our ag research is highly accessible. You know, poultry feeding trials. We've got 3 reps in place for that. Our compost, once we get that done in the garden, we'll have 2 replications ready for that. Our hydroponics, we only have 1 replication, but you know, maybe we can figure out a way to increase that. And then we do leverage other projects. I have a sustainable poultry project that I work with, and also beginning farmer outreach, frontline farm. So we are trying to look at these mutualistic type interactions with biota, with projects. We developed a STEPS RIEEE site here this summer. Dr. Oglu and I hosted 3 students for the summer. One of them stayed, so we think that maybe that's an indication that we've had a good program. We really enjoyed it. I'm working with Brenna Dold now, undergraduate, and Dr. Oglu and I still continue to work with Pia and with Mika, and I work with Nelson Gonzalez on an hourly project. So we're really trying to develop capacity for community-based food systems, work with local farmers, engagement. And our REU students this summer got to go on a farm tour with Frontline Farm with military veterans. So they got to see farms all over the high country. Phosphorus cycles locally, so we need close geographic proximity. We need close relationships. And I would say this area really is like a learning, living laboratory. So it's an exciting place to do this type of work, very much place-based, but it can be replicated. Thanks.
And for the undergraduate students, I know in at least one class that's listening online, we're not actually talking, Dan just mentioned this, what made me think about it. There are a slew, I think we have about 15 students involved in this project working on in each of these tasks. There are a couple of graduate students, but almost all undergraduate students.
Yeah, thanks for that. Great. So much to that point, it is all undergraduate. So if anyone's listening and interested, please check us out. We got everyone doing the work. We're taking credit. So thank you for it. I'm Mike Hamker. I'm in chemistry instrumentation department, professor. We've been basically looking at anaerobic digestion and then eliminating cow waste for phosphorus recovery and energy recovery. So to put that in a little bit of perspective, there are about 40 million cows in the U.S., roughly 3/4 of the beef, 1/4 of the dairy. Your average cow eats maybe 25 kilograms of dry mass per day, which represents about 24 grams of phosphorus into the cow. coming out of the cow, you have about 30 kilograms of manure per cow per day, which is about 12 grams of phosphorus out. The other half is mostly in urine, but also in growth and milk. So when you multiply that all out, you have more than 1.2 million tons of cow manure per day in the U.S. being produced, which is maybe a resource instead of waste material. And so our interest is how do we target that to extract nutrients back out and hopefully recover energy along the way. So to do that, we're looking at anaerobic digestion. This is a microbial process involving anaerobic microbial population, release 4 distinct trophic levels along the way that take digestible organic material and turn it into methane and then carbon dioxide. So we're interested in recovering the methane, using that for energy. And then the main focus for the RIEEE steps is how do we improve phosphorus retention within the digestible at the end, so that what we can do is concentrate phosphorus. If you kind of look more broadly at agricultural operations, and if you want to take this manure resource and spread it back on the field, a grass-fed cow does that beautifully. You don't need anything. That's exactly what they're meant to do. But when you get to concentrated animal feed operations, when you get towards dairy operations, there's manure is concentrated areas of over-fertilization and then inability to transport that nutrient far enough away to make it survival. So basically, for anaerobic digestion, we've been mainly exploring the past year, putting biochar in as a sorbent material to help sequester phosphorus. We're trying to concentrate phosphorus and make it more reliable to send it further away in the scope. So that's mostly what we've been doing. The other bit is we've been working with dairies in the area, trying to think through what are the opportunities for manure recovery. Where is there applicability of the method of vision. That's what we're doing.
Thanks, Mike. Kevin gets to come back up. If you don't mind,
Great. So I just want to talk a little bit about, so my role is a little bit unique in that it's split between both App State and STEPS as a center. So one of my projects more broadly is thinking about how we can create tools to promote convergence within the center. So not only do we want to have interdisciplinary research where we're connecting with one another, sharing information, but we want to create a space where we have a similar framework for thinking about phosphorus and thinking about how we do research around this subject, which requires a lot of work in just getting on the same page. I don't know if you've ever tried to talk to someone in a completely different discipline and said, I know the individual words you're saying, but together, I'm not sure how that works. So basically, Christine had developed this method of creating a shared language. So it's not just defining terms, but defining terms in ways that like I might use differently than someone else might use, that social scientists and physical scientists may have completely different meanings for. So after Christine developed the process, we created this web application called Lingo, Language Integration Opportunity, basically where that facilitates this process of creating a shared language. So people can say like, great, I heard this word, I don't know what it means, or I heard this word and that's not how I use it. And so people can make those observations and then others can go in and say, great, I know exactly what that word means in this context and have that back and forth conversation until hopefully we're all on the same page. So that's one of the big projects. We're also developing it with, so I developed the original prototype and then we're also working with Mark Hills in the computer science department. If you're thinking, I am not a computer science coder or a software developer. So it is in fairly usable form, which Mark Hills is taking and designing into a full piece of software that we'll be able to host at App State, and other research teams will also be able to use.
Hey, Tim. I'm Chief Huberty, a professor in the biology department, and the component of the steps research that I'm contributing to is around basically the mass balance analysis of what the phosphorus level looks like. So Grace was talking earlier about the triple bottom line sites. Those exist in very different areas. And you saw the three pictures, they were all split black. Basically Arizona, coastal North Carolina, Tidewater facility, and the largest wetland, I think, in North America is the Everglades, not the largest, very large. So we represent a mountainous area, which is very different, but also forested. So what we wanted to know is what is currently rivers, which are quite abundant in the high country. So we basically integrated an ongoing, now that 12th year of data capture for a group called Aqua, which is the aquatic sciences group. Mainly myself, Jeff Colby, who's on the call, I believe. And we've had a number of faculty contribute over the years, reflecting data every 15 minutes from 7 different sub-basins within the upper South Fork watershed, which is a long way of saying all of the groups that contribute to the South Fork town. Collectively, they come together at our greenway in Boone from the South Fork of the Green River. We have an 8th site of that. At that place, right near the Cutting Bridge. Every 15 minutes, pH, depth, temperature, conductivity, dissolved oxygen is being collected, and then we store that in the really rapidly to the interface. Over the years, we have computer science graduate students paid to create great for us that have migrated in the last year and upgraded. This would be eventually, I thought already would be there, but we're eventually going to have this publicly available. But the long and short of that is that this data set exists and has been contributing to graduate and undergraduate projects from its inception, but really in monitoring at this level, which is quite rare, and sub-watersheds have the land cover, that's Jeff Colby's kind of area, is to develop the land cover change over time. So how much forest is being trained to develop farmland or develop urbanized areas, and what the relative impacts have been to the water quality. So as a biologist, contributing to the monitoring of the water chemistry and physical attributes, many of my students are going out and actually collecting aquatic insects and fish data to look at the changes in the assemblage of the living organisms as it responds to the water quality change over time. So this is a very high, takes a lot of resources. We're constantly having to, every month, get out there and download data, calibrate the instruments, clean them up, change the values, and then every 3 to 5 years, we have to replace all of those instruments. So they have a pretty short half-life. And the worse the water quality, the more they cause problems with the folks. So the clean water we have, which is a lot of our sites, those folks can last a little longer. On top of the Aqua sites, we've been collecting, and by we, I mean George and Luca, the undergrads working through steps this summer. And before them, we had previous year 1 steps fellows as well. I've been around doing this collection, but they've also been tasked with visiting USGS gauge sites that monitor river levels. The major rivers are coming out of, actually all the rivers are coming out of the high country. So we can go grab samples there, go grab samples there. And this goes with the Aqua sites as well. Get the phosphorus levels. We're doing total phosphate levels, the phosphorus levels that we do. To get an idea of what the current levels of losses of phosphorus are to our river systems. And we'll correlate that back to the land cover of those subwatersheds and the land area, and then we can start calibrating what the land cover is allowing the losses. And we can start looking at a little more specific data, like how much of that forest cover is actually evergreen farms that Bob Swarthout's monitoring, as far as phosphorus in the trees that are down all together for wholesale. Sales to other places in Florida. So we think that's the number one attribute for exporting the phosphorus as far as products, but we think that the rivers are certainly the main areas of phosphorus loss. So we've also captured some data from the California water treatment plant data. We've already calculated what their annual losses are in the South Fork of the River. And we're looking at the biosolids that collect and then provide to local farmers, which are then reapplying them to the feed circulating the phosphorus cycle in the high country. If you remember the original flow chart that Grace showed you, it actually had an arrow pointing to landfill. We don't landfill any of our advice, all the applied. So we're already doing destination practices in high country as far as comes into the high country practice. And they have tertiary treatment, which really doesn't have much of the phosphorus. So the capturing the biosolids, they do a lot of So the idea is to get down to this mass balance calculation. How many tons annually are being lost in each of the different watersheds? What can we do in the future to minimize that based on applications of fertilizer or just natural losses? So as a toxicologist in the high country, I often hear people that are living down in the more developed parts of the state that have a lot more water quality issues than we do. They think it's trivial, the work that we do up here as far as saving the water quality is already so good. What else do we do? We've got a rich number of sources of water and quality of water to the point where some of the water is so clean that it's not electricity. I didn't know that was the thing until I got up here. So, so to them, I would say that 20% of the land cover in the United States, at least 20%, is forested urban, rural environments. So they may not have the water quality we do, they shouldn't have it sometimes. They're forested and hilly environment. So to get an idea of the natural budget, the national budget of phosphorus and losses, we really need to capture this knowledge here. So, and the other thing I would say is that the good water quality that we export downstream to the other communities down the river that are counting on high quality water arriving at their communities before they travel it further. If we were to match their levels of pollution before it got to them, they would be a lot worse position. So we want to make sure we keep the water quality level, good water quality. I think I'll stop there. Thanks for allowing me to say something about that.
The next two, Matt, maybe?
Hey, my name is Matt Rohu, and I'm an integrated ecologist and development scientist, the Department of Sustainable Development at HAP. I'm actually involved in two main projects and also involved in other sub-projects, which I'll talk about very soon. My main project is about the GI tract microbiome of poultry birds. Diet is pretty important in everything we do. The diets of meat birds don't get as much as the attention as much as the meats themselves from this bird. So we're trying to see how we can correlate the diets that we feed to this bird affect their health as well as environmental health. So we're going to be looking at their gut microbiota using different aspects of their small and large intestines. We're going to be collecting samples from their duodenum, their jejunum, their cecum, as well as their ileum, as well as their feces, to look at the type of microbiome, what type of microorganisms within this part of their gut. And from this, we'll be able to predict their health as well as the impact of the diets that they were fed with. The long-term goal of this project is to come up with a phosphorus-based probiotic for birds. In terms of livestock production, probiotics are very common in terms of larger livestock like cattle, but in terms of smaller livestock like poultry birds, we're not going to talk about probiotics for them. So in terms of this project, we're going to be looking at phosphorus-philic microorganisms within their guts. It's pretty simple to pick up microorganisms from the environment that are phosphorus-philic, and then actually engineer them to create probiotic for these birds. Of course, that's not ideal. So we're going to be looking for specific phosphorus-related functions within the guts of these birds And also we're going to be looking for phosphorus feeding mechanisms within them that we can actually subsequently bioengineer and use to create probiotics for these birds. Of course, through this, we'll be able to reduce the amount of phosphorus that we feed to these birds. As a matter of fact, when we include phosphorus in their meal, through the meal of this probiotic, they would be able to digest this phosphorus better. Because naturally, poultry birds don't digest phosphorus efficiently. So if you feed them a lot of phosphorus will also come out through their feces and contribute to the phosphorus load in the environment. So the whole essence of this project is to reduce the amount of phosphorus that is within this ecological system. And so far, we've been able to collect our samples, and we're working on trying to see the diversity decomposition of these phosphorus within microorganisms as well as their genetic in terms of their functional relationship as well, and the feeder structures to come up with something exciting. Okay, I'm also involved in this very exciting project as well called Grading Knowledge. Through this, we're going to be working across skill. This time around, temporal as well as scalar skills. We're going to be looking at historic soils. We'll be working with the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and basically no other system keeps record as much as the soil system within Earth's planets. Now, we're going to be looking at how historically the Lumbee people have used their soil in terms of agricultural activity. And of course, through this, we'll be able to map how this has impacted their soil over time. And in the long term, we'll be able to use that to predict soil health, soil sustainable management practices, as well as soil conservation. So we've established some stakeholders that we're going to be working with, basically families, Lumbee families that are historically been engaged in farming, but at small and large scale. Then we'll be able to collect soil from their land, these archaeological soils, will then be subjected to chronosequencing. Through chronosequencing, as well as physical soil, we'll be able to predict how past practices have shaped the current soil, and we can actually use this to come up with a sustainable management practices. So in terms of the skill here, we're going to be gaining knowledge from an archaeological perspective, from an ecological perspective, as well as from an ecological perspective. So through this knowledge that we create, we will come up with sustainable management system for the soil, with specific emphasis on the role of phosphorus. In terms of what type of crops we cultivate. These crops take up a lot of phosphorus from the environment. These crops add a lot of phosphorus to the environment. What type of phosphorus amendment that we can find within the soil is still that. And we can actually use that to come up with sustainable management system for the soil. And of course, in these two projects that I'm involved in, steps, I have 7 undergraduate students that are working with me. And of course, it can seem like a lot. And of course, they have different projects assigned to them. And it's been exciting working with these undergraduate students. All you need to do is string them at the beginning, then after that, we can step back and see them unleash the skills that you empower them with. So it's been exciting. And I look forward to working with more students, if possible, and also coming up with exciting findings that will contribute to the long-term sustainability research. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are nearing the hour, and we're about to switch into forum mode. I wanted, for those of you that were listening carefully there for Matt, this project is looking at the Lumbee people, which don't live up here in the high country. But for so many things, for faculty that might listen back to this later, because we are recording it and we'll put it on our YouTube channel, or for students that are listening and faculty online as well. Things that can be sort of translated to this problem in this place, even if you're not working in the high country on a specific problem. I think I just wanted to point that out, that we are not soliciting, we will soon be soliciting for a new round of tasks as we go into year 3 of this grant. And we need to, like I said earlier, kind of build this mosaic style understanding of what's going on here. So if your expertise applies, but you are not yet applying it to the high country context, that could or could refine it elsewhere and then translate it here. We're certainly inviting and looking for all of that kind of participation. So I just wanted to be sure that I pointed that out. And I'm sorry that we are at the hour, and because we have a lot of forum activities going on, I'll have to go ahead and close the webinar recording and thank all of our online participants for joining us today. I will edit this and put it up on our YouTube channel for people to be able to watch back later. But thank you for joining. And if you do, for those of you online that are not able to join us for the conversation after this, if you have any specific questions or follow-ups, you can reach out to me in RIEEE or any of the faculty if you know them directly if it's specific to their project. But you can find me in the directory or on the RIEEE website.